I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. It's the Friday show. You know what that means. We bring in someone who has way more knowledge than me. As it turns out, that's not hard to do, but not with this guy. This guy's got the goods. We were just chatting off the air. I wish I had recorded some of that because it might be better than some of the stuff we talk about right here on the air. But we're going to bring him right in. He's got a book out there. You might want to get it. It's on Amazon. You can go through VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner, puts a little coal in our fire, gets our train down the track. His book is called In Defense of Meat. And I'm talking about none other than Andrea Bertaglio. I'm saying it wrong. I'm going to get him to say it in Italian for me, because even though I'm a fake Italian here in America, he's not. But say it for me,
Bertaglio. So yes,
Bertaglio. Yeah, you leave everything. Everything is you take after the T. Everything is just yo.
Yes, it's difficult. Difficult.
Bertaglio. Okay. Sorry, I goofed it up there for you, Andrea, but
no worries.
It won't be the last time I goof up things during this podcast. It's kind of what I tend to do. You're a very interesting guy because you started off as an environmental journalist, right? And journalists, well, not in this country anymore. Journalists take sides, but you're just out there trying to figure out the truth with the environment, right? So that's where you start. You also have a degree in sociology, so you have that background too. What happens? What happens with you when you start? I mean, the book is called In Defense of Meat. Why does meat have to be defended to begin with?
That's the question. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm very much pleased and honored to talk to you. I don't know if I have more knowledge than yourself. I don't think so, but I try to spread the message of people really having knowledge. So all the experts I'm quoting with my job. And why do we need to defend meat? Well, because we are living in very strange times, at least in the Western world, so in the US or in Western Europe, where I'm from. So as you've said, I'm from Italy, and I think there are many similar things going on in the society. So we are very much spoiled, let's say. So we have the possibility to focus on things that give us the possibility to make the philosophers with our stomach full. So basically, there are many people attacking the livestock sector or thinking that we can give up meat and animal products, even if it's not really true. And well, I think we are also living in a time in which people are very much detached from nature and from agriculture. We are mostly living in urban areas, and we basically don't have a clue about how farming is working and how difficult is the life of a farmer, and we just attack them on the social media. It means many people in our society attack farmers and on the social media, on the media, even without knowing what they're doing, even without having put a foot in a farm in their lives. So that's why we need to defend. There are many misunderstandings. There is much disinformation or misinformation about livestock farming, about meat production, meat consumption. So as I had the chance to know and to get quite a load of information about that through my job, I felt the desire, the need. Somehow, maybe it sounds a bit crazy, but the mission to do my part in spreading a correct information, simply that, about these topics.
Yeah, I grew up. Look, my family, they were farmers in Sicily, and they came to the United States. They got to Louisiana, and they became farmers down there. Right? Small farms, usually, well, at first, I think there was a lot of rice. And then they did sugarcane. That was the mainstay for a long time. A lot of them still do sugarcane, and some of them do soybean. So I grew up, as a young guy, riding motorcycles and mini bikes through those farms. I saw what went on, worked on those farms, whenever I needed a few extra bucks. One of my relatives, Italians are famous for this. We had a 5-acre vegetable garden. That was the Tortorich family vegetable garden. And everyone worked in it. It was almost like a commune for the family. Everyone worked in it, but you had all the tomatoes, potatoes, mustard green, you name it, anything, any food, carrots, anything you wanted was in that garden. So I grew up with a working knowledge of how to plant. My wife still goes, she goes, oh my God, you know all of this stuff. I tell her stuff, and then she goes to the professional for the stuff around our place, and she'll go, wait, you already know this? How do you know this? It's like, I grew up with people from the old country that knew this shit, and we had to learn it. We didn't have, it was forced on us, right? We had to know what this was. And then I crossed the river. My best friends lived right across the Mississippi River in Burnside. They raised cattle, right? And every time they had to bring the cattle in, I got to be a working hand. Who doesn't want to be a cowboy when they're 13 or 14, right? That wasn't work. I get to be on the horse rounding up cattle. I might as well be the damn Marlboro man, right? So I had that working knowledge also. That's why I go crazy, Andrea, whenever I see these vegans saying, well, you're killing animals. You're just killing animals over there. You're just slaughtering and murdering. Man, I grew up watching animals die on the vegetation side, and no one ever ate it, right? They were just killing animals. And as my friend Lear Keith would say, just cracking land. Before you kill something fuzzy and cute and furry, just cracking land, you're killing animals. What say you?
That not so many people have had your experience, no, your background. So people, as I was saying, mostly grew up in cities or urban areas. Me too, honestly. I mean, I had an uncle as a farmer. He was having crops. He was having a corn field, but that's it. So the rest of my family was working either in offices or in factories. So I can understand that it's difficult without the direct experience, literally on the field with animals and with agriculture, to understand or to know some things. What I find frightening, particularly from these vegan people, is they have this this arrogance of being sure to know something they've never experienced. So they grew up. I make always this example. It's like watching a documentary and watching a cartoon, a Disney movie. These people watch the world through the lens of a Disney movie. They think that animals are like humans, and that's the basic misunderstanding. The anthropomorphization. Sorry, it's a difficult word for me.
Don't trust me. That's a difficult word for anybody.
Okay, thanks.
I won't even try.
So it's they treat animals like humans, despite the fact that maybe it's even not good for the animals themselves. So, and all the debates on animal welfare, for instance, because they think they are more, they're ethically superior than people eating meat or animal source products. It's turning around that. It's they think that an animal is like a human being, so meat is murder. Right in the 80s, we were hearing this expression, and that's the basic misunderstanding. But the fact is that they don't know that it's not like that objectively. The problem is that they even don't care. Not only vegans, many people have to deal with academics dealing with the greenhouse gas emissions of livestock or of cattle. And I was telling them, okay, but did you go to a farm? Did you speak to a farmer? Did you check the actual impacts of a farm on the field? And the answer I got was, no, we don't need it. We can do that from our desk, from our offices, because we have all the data and so on. And I find it frightening. and really disturbing, because they're from a world that is not willing to communicate with the farming sector, but they speak about it, they judge it, they influence the decision makers, the civil society. And then, as you know better than myself, as you have made a documentary about plant-based meat substitute, there are multi-billion interests behind feeding this narration, and it's a mix that it's hard to face. So the ideological approach of these often freaky people, and the interest, the huge economical and financial interest behind these two things combined are creating quite some damages. And I mean, you can see the effects also on people, on children of vegan couples. That's the real reason, probably my deepest motivation in writing this book. So to see the effects of a vegan diet imposed on children. As I have two small children, this thing touched me the most, and pushed me to take a stand in defense of me. So yeah.
All right. So let me. You brought up, two things that are near and dear to my heart, and I want you to expound on both of them. One is when you go, well, yeah, I don't need to go to a farm. I don't need to talk to a cattle rancher. I can just look on the internet and come up with anything I need to come up with. And I'll go, oh, great. Go to the internet. That's great. Have you ever heard of Dr. Frank Mitloehner? Oh, no. Yeah, but he's wrong. Frank is wrong. Okay, well, wait. I thought you said you could go to the internet and just decipher what's correct. What's wrong with what Frank says? Frank doesn't have a dog in a fight. He's at a university out in California, I think UC Davis, and he's one of the foremost authorities in the world on CO2 emissions when it comes to animal welfare. Why aren't you paying? Well, because, so you don't care about the truth. You just want your bias to be confirmed, right? It's like any other religion or politics. People want confirmation bias, right? I'm on the left. I want to believe this. I don't care what they're saying over there. They're wrong. I'm right. I'm on the right. I believe this. I don't care what they're saying on the left. They're wrong. It's confirmation bias. And that's what we have to get away from. We have to get back to some form of the truth. I want you to answer that. And then I want to get into the part about the kids, but go ahead and answer that first, because I have a real question about the kids.
Yeah, I know Frank Mitloehner very well, actually, by the way, and I was speaking about the attacks he's constantly receiving. No more than 3 weeks ago, I was in Davis, and it's amazing because he's a scientist, so he's speaking, he's having an objective, neutral, scientific, academic approach, and it's crazy to be attacked constantly, or to be blamed because you speak about the subjects you know about. In the crazy times we're living, if somebody, an expert of air quality and zootechnics like Frank Mitloehner is speaking about these things, is condemned, is attacked because he does it. So who is supposed to speak about that if he doesn't do that? So yeah, I know pretty much his problems about that, and I find it impressive. But I can tell you about the bias. In this book, this short book, I'm sharing also my personal experience. For me, getting in touch with the livestock sector was a breakthrough. Was the moment in which I got in touch with the livestock sector and with the meat sector in general, let's say, precisely, was a defining moment for me, as I'm explaining, because in the book, because it was the beginning of both a professional and even more a personal path, which took me to change quite a few points of view that I had, because writing about environment already 15, 18, 20 years ago, at the beginning, on top of, I was in my late 20s, beginning 30s, I thought I was you're more an activist than a journalist when you write about environment.
Right.
And you risk to get your ideas, your prejudices crystallized. Is it correct? Yes.
Yeah.
And thanks. And you risk to get into this loop in which you are convinced that you have the truth. And in these, echo chambers, in this having this approach in which you are convinced that you are right. And honestly, it took me a lot of energy to change my mind about some things like
Andrea, take me through just a few of the things when you were living in that world and you were dealing with your own confirmation bias and trying to be, what were you thinking back then that you've changed now? Don't give us everything, but just maybe a half dozen things that you thought then. And did you really think those things?
Oh, yes.
You had certainty around those things.
Yes.
I want to really flesh this out because I don't think people understand this. When you have a confirmation bias, you can't see anything else. Go on.
No, because it's like, when you're a teenager and you have this rebellious attitude in your adolescence and you think you're right and everyone is an idiot around you. It's something similar, I would say, that you take onto bigger subjects like environment, like society, like animals, like nutrition. And you're really believing that you're right. But at one side, because you have this naive approach of an activist, I think most of the people, also among vegans, are in good faith somehow. The fact is that you don't realize that you need to believe in something, because as you know better than myself, these things are lived as a dogma. We're speaking of new religions here, because well, we could say from Italy. I remember my grandma, extremist Catholic. It's no more like that. God is dead. The other grandfather was believing strongly in his political party. Political parties are not really taking into account right now. So we all need to believe in something. And these people found a way to believe in veganism, in animal rights activism, because it's condensating, it's combining all the things which are trendiest at the moment. If you think climate change, so you protect the climate, you save the animals, you take care of your health, even if it's a complete misunderstanding what they're talking about in terms of nutrition. So they're convinced that they found the right thing to believe in, and an easy solution, so giving up meat, to complex issues like climate, like environment, like animal welfare, like nutrition, health. So in a few words, what I experienced is that you really believe in that, but if you're not completely dumb, I say with all the respect for everyone, you realize at a certain point that most of the things you're believing in are BS. So you need to you need to pull yourself together and to find the energy also, and the willingness to face yourself and your convictions. If you don't want to end up these know-it-all, which are just pleased, just self-indulgent, thinking to be better than the others because they eat tofu or a salad, and then they fall into thousands of other contradictions. And about me, so if I have to choose an example of what I've changed, for instance, I was very much ideologically against anything that was industrial. It's a word you cannot use anymore, no?
Wow.
To realize, so I was baking my bread at home, I was having my veggie garden, I was against everything which was industrially produced. But then I realized that industrial means also efficient, so you can save loads of resources, maybe also just to make profit. So I started questioning an entire lifestyle considering the fact that we are many people on this earth, and organic production is all very nice and very interesting, but if we're speaking of feeding an entire world and giving all the people in the world the possibility to get affordable quality food, we cannot think like that. That's an elite thinking. It's a niche thing, and again, if it's enough for you to feel better than the others, you can stay there. But if you really want to face the problems about sustainability, about environment, about climate, you need to go further and find proper ways to produce meat or anything sustainably. And that's what was my the way that made me get in touch, accept to get in touch with the sector when I've been asked to, because at the beginning, when they asked me to collaborate with them in reviewing a report at the beginning, they means the meat industry in Italy, I was thinking it was greenwashing. I had all my bunch of prejudices, but then I wanted to do that, to try, and my God, I had the chance to figure out so many things about sustainability, about environmental impacts, about the people working in this field, that was really shocking for me. I mean, also from a humane perspective, I've seen many more nice people in the meat industry than in many NGOs, environmental NGOs, and that was another shock for me. But that's my personal experience. But
when I first moved I lived in Hollywood for like 30 some odd years, and I got there in 1990. And I'm not going to mention a woman's name. She was one of my close friends, and I love her today. I have nothing against this woman whatsoever. I'm not going to mention her name. She's a pretty big celebrity. She was much bigger celebrity back at that time. And so she walked the walk and talked the talk. She was vegan through and through. And she was all about PETA. And she had, get this, in 1990, she had an electric car. And you go, wait, Vin, nobody was really producing an electric car in 1990. Yeah. No, if you were rich, if you were a famous actress and you had a lot of money, you could get an electric car. And what they would do is they would take like a small car, like a Datsun. I don't know if they were calling them Nissan by that point, but they would take like an older car, like an old Datsun or Nissan. They would take the engine out. They would take the combustion engine out, and they would put in the equivalent of a big electric engine. And then they would clear out the rest of the car, the trunk, take out the back seats or whatever. And they would literally hook up a series of batteries, the same kind of battery you would put in your car, right? Like a car battery, not these lithium style batteries you have now. So they would fill the car up with those, and there would be all these harnesses and everything. And I would say to my friend, okay, you're driving that to save the environment. She was like, yes, I am. I'm making a statement. It's like, all right. And back then, they didn't have these cool lithium batteries and everything that they have today. It's like, how far can you go? And I think it was 15, 20 miles on a charge, right? So she couldn't go very far away from home in it, couldn't really get on a freeway with it, all this kind of stuff. But she was making a point. And I said to her, when this car is done, where is all that acid that's in all of those batteries in that car? Where is that supposed to go? Number one. And number two, where is the energy coming from to fill up those batteries every time you get home? And she goes, well, I plug it in. I have this makeshift thing. A guy came in my house and hooked up a 220 and all this kind of stuff, a 210. He's like, okay, so there's coal being shoveled into a turbine somewhere that's expelling that into the air. So you're still causing CO2 carbon. You've created this, which you have no answer as to how you're going to get rid of it when it's done. But none of that mattered. What mattered was, hey, I look like I'm doing better for, I'm hugging a tree and I'm saving a Reese's monkey. And believe it or not, I love this woman. We had great times together, great laughs. She was a great athlete. I stopped hanging out with her because I am not kidding you when I tell you every weekend was trying to get arrested. She was trying to get, because that was cool to get arrested, right? Her brother was in jail one time for like 6 months. He was part of the movement, right? And I said, well, why is your brother still in jail? Why, what's the bail? Can you go get him out? She goes, no, he wants to sit there. He's proving a point. And I said, to who? Who's he proving a, what's he doing? He's sitting in jail. There's no news stories on your brother. Yeah, but everybody in the organization knows that he's his convictions. He means this. And every time I looked around, she was being carted off for, they would break into labs to steal Reese's monkeys and animals and beagles and everything else. They were stealing animals from labs, and they were happy about this. It's like, well, you broke into some place and you stole. Do you not care about that? And how do you know what kind of experiment they were running on that animal? That animal couldn't eat drugs right now. You don't know any of that. Didn't matter. It's, she wanted to be seen on the 6 o'clock local news in LA being carted off in handcuffs, right? I don't get that mentality. Were you in that kind of organization? I mean, were you guys doing that kind of work?
No, never like that. Fortunately, I was never dealing with this kind of people. That was extreme for me too to hear about. No, the people I was surrounded with by were just people, as I said, naive people in search of a sense for their life. So fortunately, I was not dealing with this kind of egocentric types in Hollywood. No, just people who were looking for a purpose, but in a way which was not right. Because the funny thing is that I've never seen anyone all those years really happy or satisfied, because it was a constant deprivation of something good, like also food wise. It was like really, it was weird. It was, and then I already at the time I was not. I tried to be vegetarian for a couple of weeks, twice, without big success, because I'm a meat lover since ever, and I had quite some clashes with some of them also in public, because I remember also from an environmentalist, let's say, perspective. So that's why I often say, and I'm criticized for that you cannot be an environmentalist or really caring of the environment if you are vegan. Because I was dealing with people convinced that it was better to wear a pile, so oil origin plastic thing, rather than wearing a woolen pullover. Say, right. But you're even not killing an animal. And maybe, and they're speaking even of locally produced wool, and you think it's better wearing pile. Where is your local?
Hang on. They look at that as animal slavery. Even
exactly.
Hurting or killing the animal, you're taking care of the animal. The animal, you can get the wool from the animal, use the lanolin, use every piece of that wool, yet they have a problem with that, which that blows my mind. But go on.
No, it blows my mind too, because it doesn't make any sense from any point of view. Because about the environment, you're saying crap. About the animal welfare or the animal exploitment, I mean, there is a farmer taking care of that animal, of the sheep in this case, while in the woods it would be constantly under threat of wolves and predators and so on, diseases. And it's just a demonstration of the fact that these people, sometimes, mostly, I want to think in good faith, sometimes not, like your friend in Hollywood, really with a purpose of getting some attention, don't have clue anyway. Because as you've said, when you free animals, farmed animals from a laboratory, from a farm, you can create big damages. like nowadays, we have a problem in Italy with the swine, African swine fever. So, which is risking to get into the pig farms of the central north of Italy, where there is all the prosciutto di Parma production, all these very famous Italian products. So this disease, this virus, is carried by wild boars in the woods, and it's very dangerous because it can fortunately doesn't infect humans, but it can get the pigs of the pig farms. And we have the animal activists, animal rights activists, campaigning to avoid, to forbid hunting wild boars.
Oh.
And it's a threat not only for the economy, not only for the pig, also for the condition of the pigs. I mean, if this virus get the pigs, it's killing them in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's a danger also there are so many wild boars. You find them in Rome, in the cities, and the mother, and the wild boar mother with the calves can be dangerous in a city, Yeah. So, but they don't care. They just want to save animals. They want to save animals. For instance, often they do that with so-called alien species. So animals from some other continents. We're plenty in Europe of, the squirrel from the US. Some idiot thought some years ago, I think 20, 30 years ago, to free an American squirrel in the woods on the Alps. These squirrels grew as a population, and now we have the European ones, which are smaller and weaker, who are getting extinct because they don't want to control the spread of the. So it's all a big misunderstanding of people not having a clue, as I say, thinking that animals are like the ones in the cartoons, and they don't want to kill them. But sometimes it's necessary either to have a proper nutrition or to control a pest, because it's we need to call it as it is. But they don't care, and they don't know, and they don't care.
Yeah, you're right, Andrea. It's the ignorance. I know your wife is from Germany. I don't know if you know this, but hunting organizations in Germany, as well as the United States, like here we have Ducks Unlimited, and people go, "Oh, Ducks Unlimited, that's got to be some white supremacists, got to be hooked to NRA." No, Ducks Unlimited has done more for conservation in this country than almost anyone, because number one, they were the ones, I'm going to name a small thing, shooting lead shot over water. Now you have lead in the water, right? So it's got to be steel shot, right, when you're shooting over water. And the fact that you need duck tags, you can't just go out and kill them willy-nilly, right? You have to have duck tags, and there's a season and so on and so forth. So you can cull the population to keep it all within reason, right? And that's helped conservation in ways people can't even understand. Over in Germany, I don't know if you know this, but in order to get a hunting license in Germany, you have to go through this rigorous program. You don't just go like in the United States, you just go get your tags or pay for this, pay for that. You have to go through a program and take a test, the same way you would take a driver's test or anything like that.
Also in Italy, yeah.
Yeah, and part of it, and tell me if it's like this in Italy, but in Germany, because I have a friend who hunts in Germany, if you see a cat while hunting and it's more than 200 meters from any homestead, you are obligated to shoot the cat, to kill the cat. And that sounds cruel. I'm a cat lover. We have 2 cats right here in the house. I can't imagine having to shoot a cat. I don't think I can, right? But they're obligated because it's an invasive species. And if it's not someone's pet around their house, if it's more than 200 meters, they're assuming that's a feral cat that's going to wipe out some other portion of the population out there. Have you ever heard anything like this?
Honestly, no. But I've heard about Germany, about hunting in Germany, that sometimes they let hunters take down invasive species, but I didn't know about that, about the cat.
Yeah, cats that were not domesticated, that grew, because the populations get out of control, because spay and neutering just didn't work, right? Now you have all of these cats knocking out other populations. So it's not hating on cats. It's,
No.
hey, we have a problem here, right? Here in this country, you know, our deer population has exploded. And all winter long, mostly in the winter, some in the summer and the spring, you'll see dead deer all over the road, especially where I live. And I'm sitting there going, man, that's quality meat that someone could have eaten. And when you're out hunting deer, a lot of times you'll see an old buck that's just fumbling along, just in pain, wanting to die, right? Because we have too many deer and we don't have anything, we don't have the seasons long enough to cull the population, right? So it becomes an issue. By the way, a deer is a ruminant that's also putting these methane gases in the air. So where's PETA? Where's the vegans on that? You know, oh, fuck, Bambi? Can we kill Bambi? Can we eat Bambi? Or is that methane gas not the same as what comes from a cow? What say you?
Surely they cannot eat Bambi. Suddenly, if it's about Bambi, the methane is not an issue anymore, because you can see they're pretty much selective in their love for animals. So it's about pigs, it's about farmed animals, but I never seen a sit-in of vegans to avoid to get rid of rats in a building. I mean, probably there are some crazy people advocating for rats and pests too. There are, I know, but I'm sure that it's they're very selective in. Maybe I'm wrong, but they're very clever in choosing the animals they're advocating for. So the ones working more when it comes to give an emotional message. So I'm sure that they have nothing to do. They have nothing to say when it comes to methane emissions of Bambi.
Yeah, I want to go back. I wanted to pose this question earlier, but we moved on with some of the environmental stuff. Vegan parents who will turn their kids vegan. We've seen cases here in the US where parents have gone to jail because they've killed their kids on a vegan diet, you know, giving it to them from birth. The kid doesn't develop correctly. The kid is dead within a few years. Folks, this is not made up crap. You can go look this up. Not that hard to find. And people go, well, those parents should go to jail. And I'm always thinking, you know, I actually feel sorry for the parents too, because they were lied to by some of these vegan zealot doctors like Michael Greger and, McDougall and Walter Willett over at Harvard. And I could go on and on. The Esselsteins and the guy who wrote, I can't think of his name, Campbell, who wrote the China study. I wanted to say The Big Chill, but the China study. And I could go on and on and on. I don't blame the parents. The parents got caught in this idealism that it's okay and the best way to live is on a vegan diet. They end up in jail. Why doesn't anyone go look at their bookshelf and go, well, they read How Not to Die by Michael Greger, and they were a big fan of Esselstein and McDougall and on and on and on. Why don't they go after those people? Why do they go after the parents only? Number one. And number two, you want to talk about real cruelty to animals. Putting a dog or a cat on the mother effing vegan diet. I can't think of anything worse in the world than putting an animal, because that animal, I got 2 cats and a dog here. Love them to death. Those cats go out and kill every day. I'm not exaggerating. This time of year, somewhere between 3 and 5 chipmunks or chipmunks/birds left in the laundry room, because that's where they can come into every single day. I've taught my dog to take it because I have a bird dog. He'll sit there and wait. He'll stand over it. I'll say, take it outside. He takes it outside, give him a treat, right? That way I don't have to deal with it. My dog disposes of it. I guess you could say he's a working dog. With the squirrels, my dog will take it outside and eat the meat around the guts, right? He will actually open it up, especially if the cat started to eviscerate it, and he will eat some of the meat. These animals are carnivorous. They want to eat meat every day, yet you have these vegan assholes giving these poor animals vegan diets. Any thoughts?
Oh, many thoughts. It's both about animals, and it's already crazy enough to try to veganize a cat or even a dog. And I've seen some of them doing that without success, because then, in particular, the cat is going out and doing what he wants, fortunately. But for sure, I was touched. I was touched more by this imposition on children, as I was saying, because first of all, I agree with you. I don't blame too much the parents. I blame them a bit because your ego, your convictions went, your arrogance somehow went beyond common sense and the love you're supposed to feel for your children. So I blame them, but I get a limit in blaming them, because I'm writing that in the book. I'm writing about that. There was a politician in Italy who has proposed to give penalties or send to jail vegan parents imposing vegan diets to children. And I'm writing that I don't agree, because you don't need to, from my point of view, necessarily to send people to jail. You need to educate them, to inform them. As you say, the regulation should be on the disinformation circulating, not when the damage is done, sending a parent to jail. I can imagine that a parent, even if crazy vegan parent, is going to jail because his or her son or daughter died because of your choices. If he or she is not completely crazy, I don't think he is living better the rest of his or her life. So the problem is the disinformation circulating. The problem is this vegan animal rights NGOs with multi-million-dollar budgets spreading disinformation through their agendas. The problem is at the school where my children are going, the teacher, again, in good faith, copying and pasting what she's hearing or reading on the media, which is mostly a plant-based promotion. And I have my kids coming home and telling me, one is 9 and one is 7. And the first one already last year, so 8 years old, coming home and telling me, all my classmates think that eating animals and animal origin products is wrong. That is wrong to kill an animal even for eating it. Sorry. And then you find the children 7, 8 years old vegan, and the parents, and I have 2 cases in the class of my first son. The parents are not vegan, but they didn't have the guts to tell her daughter, in that case, it's wrong, because it's not easy. I understand as a parent nowadays. I mean, my child came home and he asked me, he had a chicken leg in the plate, and he asked me something like 2 years ago, out of the blue, was that an animal? Oh God, yes, it was. You don't know what to say in these times. When I was a child, they were telling me, yes, eat and shut up, fine. Nowadays, you also as a parent, you think, okay, how can I say something appropriate, not to, I don't say traumatizing, but not to have a counterproductive effect. So I tried my best. I improvised. I say, yeah, it was an animal. And you will hear a lot on TV, at school, that it's wrong, that an animal was killed to let you eat, but it's not. It's the most natural thing. It was always like that. I hope it will be always like that. And actually, what you need to remember is that you have to respect the sacrifice we have been of the animal. So I was trying to teach him the fact that you don't have to waste it. You don't have to, you need to keep in mind that an animal was killed to let you eat properly. Apparently it worked out, what I told him, because a few weeks later he convinced this veggie girl at school to eat some sausage. It was one of the best successes of my life, honestly. But all this story to say that yes, it's really a social issue, because me personally, I got the chance to speak with a doctor, with a pediatrician. I made an interview, and this woman really, with no prejudice, no, is not somebody maybe like us, that we are also frankly telling our opinion about vegans and so on. She was just a doctor with 40 years of experience, so the head of the pediatric sector at the hospital in which she was working, and just telling me objectively about these children, more and more coming with maybe she had a boy 1 year old, a child 1 year old, big like a baby 3 months old. She had a girl, a small child, again 3-4 years old, seeing her parents, picking food and not eating meat and not eating that, and she got so selective that at the end, 4 years old, she didn't want to eat anymore. Or she got children, always I'm speaking of children of vegan couples, with anemic shock. So they had to make a blood transfusion.
Oh,
So she told me stories that really shocked me. And the way she was telling that, again, very objectively, very, very balanced, and telling me, the problem is that these people are coming and you cannot talk to them. They talk to you as if they're your peers, because you're a doctor with 40 years of experience.
right.
You don't have only a degree in medicine. You're a doctor since a long time, a medical doctor, sorry. And these people are coming and telling you what you're supposed to do, because maybe they read a book, one of the people you were, maybe of the authors you were mentioning, or because they watched a documentary, or because they read something on a blog, and they come and they tell you what you're supposed to do and that you have no clue. And they made these damages, and they even don't realize it. And it's so, yeah, we're speaking of extreme situations, but still, these last years we have seen both in the US and in Italy and in Europe, too many of those.
I wonder if, I'm 60 years old now. So when I was a kid, growing up in Southern Louisiana, and it was like a little enclave of Italians. So there was a lot of all of this kind of heritage that came from Southern Italy that lived right on the bayou where I grew up. But between that and being steeped in the Cajun lifestyle, that Southern Cajun Louisiana lifestyle, my great-grandfather, Natale Tripodi, from Calabria, they were fishermen in Calabria. So my family owned a fish store when they, that was their business in our small town. So I knew an oyster was some sort of animal when I was a kid, right? I knew that mollusk was alive, when they taught me as a 6-year-old to work that oyster knife and open it and see what was in there, right? And just a fascination of that. And my Papa Tripodi taking me down to the bayou, and the first time you get a fish on a line, right, when you're 5 or 6, and that feeling of, oh my God, it's a guttural thing. You don't realize it as a kid. You feel like a real man when you're like 5 or 6, because you're catching that fish, and that fish, and it comes out of the water. It's like, man, look what I just did. And then watching your great-grandfather with the knife, because they won't hand a 5-year-old a knife, right? Showing me how you clean the fish, how you scale the fish, and how you have to gut the fish and get the meat off the bone to fillet it. And you start realizing oysters, fish, these are animals. This thing was wiggling in my hand an hour ago, and now I'm eating it, right? You make that connection as a kid. I think by the time I was 8 or 9, I was going along on rabbit hunts. They handed me a small shot, like a 410 or something. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and most of the time my gun wasn't even loaded, but I would walk through the woods, the beagles are going and getting, scaring the rabbits up and bringing them back to. By the time I was 11 or 12, man, I was a dead shot. And, I never had this feeling of, remorsefulness. You know, it was like, oh my God, I just killed food. I just got food. You know, it was like this excitement of the hunt, right? And so I guess I wasn't really home watching Bambi or anything. I saw Bugs Bunny, but that was so cartoonish it didn't count. But just being there, knowing that as a 12-year-old, I'm bringing food in, right? It's such a guttural thing where you feel like a man, right? Where you feel like you're doing, and when you learn how to skin and quarter that rabbit, right? Gut it, or gutting it means dressing it and skinning it. And then, you know, quartering it and knowing how to do that, you know, so it can be cooked properly. And when you eat that, you realize where your food came from. When you grow up like that, you don't have to really connect many dots to realize that the steak that's on your plate used to be a cow, or the mutton on your plate used to be a lamb. You already know that stuff, right? Because you've skinned enough fish and gutted enough rabbits, and then, you know, I moved on to deer and birds and everything else, but you actually know that stuff. Yet when you get to an environmentalist and you start talking to those guys, when you start talking to these vegan nut jobs, they talk to you as if you're some kind of freaking nut job and you don't understand anything. And I'm always sitting there thinking, no, I don't think you understand anything. Am I making any sense to you here, Andrea?
You made total sense, and you raised, I think, the main points from my point of view, because as we were talking about probably earlier off the record, I'm sorry, I bring it again on the philosophical level, let's say, philosophical in terms of our approach with the reality. So first of all, children nowadays mostly don't have this kind of experiences, so they cannot connect these dots. But the real problem here is, and I'm sorry if I insist on that, philosophical and social or sociological. And I mean with this that so the vegans in particular, but not only them, are the maximum, the top expression of our detachment from nature. I insist with this point. Why? Because we all, more or less, don't accept any more sickness, so that we can get ill, that we can die. We're not used to that anymore. It's so far, fortunately, from our lives. Then in Europe, it's enough to drive a few hours, and we are in Ukraine, and you find the death on the streets. But in Western Europe, in the US, and in a few other places in the world, we are so used to the illusion that we can stay away from death that we take this conviction on everything else. And the vegans are the best expression of that. So they think that death is no more part of our world. So that's what I mean when I say that they're completely detached from nature. And why do I say that? Because if any child, probably in a city, in a Western city nowadays, it's taking the oyster, as you were doing, or getting the fish, there is someone for sure around, as you were saying, looking at you as if you are a murderer, no? As if you are doing something mean, something bad, because you're killing a living being. And that's the crazy thing going on. So that's why I think that you got, in telling this story, the core of the problem, if you ask me. So we're speaking about environment, we're speaking about animal welfare, we're speaking about ethology, we're speaking about many different topics, more or less technical, but the core of the discussion is this: is merely sociological, psychological, philosophical. So it's the illusion of too many people that you can live staying far away from death, yours and the one of other beings, to let you eat properly. I don't know. I hope I expressed myself properly.
You did. I want to end with this, because you did mess around with trying to be a vegan, and this sort of thing for short periods, right?
Yeah.
Talk about, and I know you talk about it in your book, talk about the importance of the nutritional value. Now, this is something my audience has heard 1,000 times, but I like them to hear it over and over, not just from me, not just from Gary Taubes or Nina Teichels or whoever, especially when someone has the really cool European accent that you have. Explain the nutritional value of eating red meat versus what vegans aren't getting.
Well, on top, I have the luck to follow the so-called Mediterranean diet, which, as I'm explaining, is not only pasta and pizza. It's not about carbs. It's a lot about fish and meat. So the nutritional value of meat is enormous. Why? Because first of all, it's the food which gave us the possibility to become humans. So as we are, we know scientifically that the human evolution was possible thanks to the fact that we started at a certain point to eat also meat. So our brain could develop much more. We had more energy stored to give us the possibility to do other things and not only chewing all the time like gorillas are doing, because sometimes I have to hear the comparison between men and gorillas. No? So yeah. He's 3 times bigger than myself, but he has a brain 3 times more than mine. So I wouldn't change my position. So I wouldn't trade positions. And they spend most of the day chewing grass and whatever. So it was very useful, very fundamental actually to evolve. And nowadays still is the food, as you can teach me, and you are doing with your work in general, with your documentaries, is like an energy bar. Is giving you a lot of is nurturing without making you heavy, fat, and is making you feel always satisfied, always full. Sorry, I don't get the word now, but anyway, it's giving you a lot of energy and nurturing you a lot. Also limiting the calories, because I'm speaking of the so I'm making the comparison between meat, also chicken, not only red meat, chicken, pork, and beef, compared to peas, hazelnut, soy, and you see, to get the same amount of protein, how much more peas or lentils or all the things they say can substitute meat you have to eat. And the damages you're making to your guts in eating so much of that stuff, and how many calories or kilocalories you're getting. Or in the book, I'm speaking about Popeye, speaking of cartoons again, because I heard all my life that the best source of iron is spinach. and then you figure out that to get the same amount of iron of a red meat steak, you need to eat 25 kilos of spinach. Sorry, I'm using the metric system, but 25 kilos is
12 pounds of kilos. What is that? I got it backwards. Is that 40 pounds of spinach?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know at the moment, but it's a lot.
I'll figure it out while you're talking. Go on.
It's really a lot, and good luck with eating 25 kilos or how many pounds they are of spinach. The effects on your body and on your digestion, and so meat is an incredible source of vitamins, minerals, and you cannot substitute that. And who's coming to tell you that you can is a fraud. Is trying to either to sell you something, mostly hyper processed prep, the pretended to substitute meat, or they want to convince you that again you can live and eat without killing any animals and blah blah blah. Just
by the way, folks, I thought 25 kilos was around 40 pounds of vegetation. It would be 55 pounds of that's several bushels of Yeah, that was debunked a long time ago, and I was just talking to, who was it? Ted Naiman on the show. And I was like, look, we were talking about that. If you want to be a vegan, and you're not going to eat any meat, you can't, you have to then supplement with some kind of vegan protein powder to even try to get close. And I even pushed back on that, saying, look, you're not going to get all the amino acids in exactly the right form that you would get it from a chicken egg or a duck egg or any kind of animal protein. You're just not going to get the same amino acid profile. And, the other day, someone was pushing back on my Instagram. I was talking about oatmeal not being a very healthy food for you. Oh, people are just stuck on their oatmeal, right? And I said, well, and one guy goes, well, an egg is only 6 grams of protein and oatmeal is 3. And I went, okay, so it's double. But if you have 3 eggs, you now have 18 grams of protein. That's pretty good for a meal with no carbohydrates. In order to get the same thing from eating the oatmeal, you would be somewhere in 100, 120, maybe 150 grams of carbohydrate just to get the same protein profile out of oatmeal, and you're not getting the same amino acid profile that you would get from meat. So it's not the same thing. It's not even close. It's not even close. Yet that's where we are. Mario, I'd love to. I called you Mario. Andrea, I don't know why I called you Mario. People call me Tony all the time because I'm Italian. Andrea, I would love to talk to you all day, but I have another podcast to do. Let's tell people they could find the book In Defense of Meat right now on Amazon. You go to Amazon, get that book, folks. I'm recommending it. Go get the book. Andrea, I hope this is not the only time you ever come on the podcast. I would love to have you back as early and as often as you'd like to come on. If you have any kind of new breaking information that and you don't even have to stay for an hour. We could bring you in for 30 minutes or whatever. I would appreciate you coming on and talking to us more because you're a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for that. Where can people find you besides the book?
Well, you find me on Twitter and LinkedIn mostly. I'm not really using Facebook, Instagram anymore. So basically, I'm very active on Twitter at the moment. So you find me there. And well, I'll be pleased to join you again. And thank you for your time. And it was really a pleasure. And I hope so. I hope so too. I hope that we can stay in touch and talk again because it was really a pleasure. And you are also, for me, a very important source of knowledge and information. So. Thanks. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Hang on. I want to say goodbye to you off the air. Folks, I need to do a quick ad here for Villa Capelli. You want to talk about Italy? Oh, yeah. Look, when I first started traveling to Italy, I said to Serena, I said, is it just that I'm romanticized by this country or is the olive oil better? Turns out the olive oil in Italy is a lot better because they're not mixing seed oils in. Here in the United States, you're allowed to mix up to 40% of a seed oil to the olive oil and still call it 100% olive oil. That doesn't happen in some countries like Italy. We get Villa Capelli here through villacapelli.com. Paul Capelli was a good friend. God rest his soul, if there is a God. His husband continued the company, and you're still getting the good, great quality olive oil out of Puglia. You want to go get Villa Capelli. You want to save 10%. Put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, 10% off at Villa Capelli every single time. You know what to do. If you want to get the book In Defense of Meat, go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner, the Amazon banner, bookmark it, use it every time. Pick up In Defense of Meat. It'll be in the Vinnie Book Club whenever this show comes out in a few weeks. So go check that out. On behalf of Andrea, let me see if I can say it right, Bertaglio.
Perfect.
I got it that time. My name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.
Thank you.